Now you know. Now you know.
Notice that when I'm centering, the clay is not telling me what I'm going to do with my right hand that's pushing down and actually pushing the clay to the center. I'm telling the clay by my body posture, I'm nice and close to the wheel. My elbow is locked into my hip, and therefore my hand does not move as I'm pushing the clay. Notice that my pinky is firmly attached to the bat. If you keep enough water on the bat, that will keep you from having burning or friction.
No, you don't know the one dreams of you at night and longs to kiss your lips and longs to hold you tight. Oh, I'm just a friend. That's all I've ever been.
As you begin opening your piece, it's very important that you pay attention to the fact that your thumbs go directly straight down in the center of the piece. Many of you guys are pulling out as you are pushing down. It's very important that you get your piece open before you begin pulling out. If you do not, you will very easily knock it off center. Notice how my piece has stayed centered because I went straight down as opposed to pushing down and pulling out. Now I begin pulling my walls up. As I begin pulling my walls up, my hands are locked together. Notice my thumb on my right hand. Notice how I use the sponge technique to help pull the wall up. You want your walls wet enough that your hands glide over. However, you do not want them so wet that you have a puddle growing inside the bowl that you're throwing. As you begin to pull up for a bowl, you also begin to pull out, and that is going to begin to give you that bowl shape. And notice, again, just like when I'm centering, I'm telling the clay what it's going to do. The clay is not telling my hands what it's going to do. It's very important that you have strong hands, but that you do not pinch as you'll begin pulling your pieces off or collapsing the walls in the center. It's also important that you keep enough water on your hands. Notice I have not rinsed the slip off of my inside hand. I'm continuing to allow that to build up so that I do not have to have super soaking wet clay. So the biggest mistake of a new beginner is really, really wet clay. Once you get that water into the clay, it's very difficult to actually pull it out. You can see as I begin to trim my piece with my needle tool in my left hand, I am pushing the needle tool through the piece, but I am not moving the needle tool because my piece is spinning. That's going to trim any of those uncentered parts that I pulled up through the walls off of my piece. Notice that when I begin pulling a wall up each and every time, I pull all the way from the bottom and I pull all the way through to the top. It's really important. I've noticed several of you guys as you're pulling that you start in the middle and you pull to the top, or you pull from the bottom and you pull to the middle. It's very important that once you begin a pull that you are firm with that pull, and then you begin all the way at the bottom and go all the way to the top. You will also notice that I used my wooden knife to trim off that bottom chunk of the clay. And if you watch carefully, you'll actually see this hunk of clay down here that's still making it appear to be attached to the bat. That's the last step when you are getting ready to finish a piece, so that it looks finished and it does not appear to just still be a hump of clay off of the wheel. And so again, if you pay attention, I'm always using my dominant hand on my outside. I am left-handed, so those of you who are right-handed will do what I do with my left hand with your right hand, and what I do with my right hand with your left hand. You can see that I'm trimming just a little bit of clay off the bottom. You can see that that brought that bottom in, so that now my bowl does not have a thin spot and back to an outer hump of clay. I give that one last pull, sometimes two, depending on how much clay I end up pulling up. Last thing I like to do is to get my finger marks off of the piece. So I will take a rib and compress that water back into the piece. Very gently just held that rib to the side. That also is helpful if your clay gets too wet. Before it begins to tear, you can again compress that clay so that it'll go back. So some of those little tiny holes that you guys are getting will go away. Yes, I just left my piece hanging out there. You'll see what I went to go grab. And if you look at my wheel on Monday, or if you check my bucket on Monday, you'll also notice I probably left it in or near my bucket. What I went to go get was a chamois. Remember I taught you guys the trick with the paper towel? I also just recently found my chamois, and you are more than welcome to use them. I will put them in a box and put them next to your wheel throwing tools, but you can see that it's kind of just like when you're drying off the car. You wet the chamois, and then I'm going to do exactly what I did with the paper towel, and I'm just going to keep that running around the rim so that I have a nice round rim, because nobody wants to drink out of a sharp-edged bowl. And there's my bowl. Last step is to cut it off with the wire cutters. Remember, when you're pulling with your wire cutters to cut your piece, you want to push down as you pull towards you. See that my thumbs are controlling my piece by keeping it down. And the last step, guys, always make sure you turn your wheels off. I can't stress how important that is, because gosh darn it, you'll ruin your perfect piece. Let me know if you have questions. Otherwise, I will see you guys all on Tuesday.